right, everybody. Hey, welcome back to Middle Earth. This is the Rings of Power podcast on the Watching Now channel. Sponsored and brought to you by CouchSoup. Oh my god, what an episode. It was the penultimate episode of the Rings of Power Season 2. And if you wanted action, we got action. And we're going to talk about it right here because this is what we do. We nerd out on streaming TV, on the things we love about fandoms. We break it all down. We give you the lore, and we give you some opinions that you may or may not agree with. But listen, there are opinions, and we're sticking to them. And I'm joined this week yet again by the lovely On. Say hi.
Hello.
And your camera's out of focus.
Mako Vanen.
And who is comes from her TTRPG channel, Roll D5. Go check out that channel after you listen to this.
Yeah,
go check out Roll D5 on anywhere you watch streaming, Twitch, YouTube, all that awesomeness, because it's actually pretty good. She GMs a lot of. Do you say GM or DM? What's your
Technically GM? It encompasses more than just Dungeons and Dragons, so GM is the
GM's better. Yeah, I know. There's always like a little on that, but go check them out. She GMs the shows, and they're like hyper interactive. She writes her own content. It's
also a completely different system every single week. So we have a completely different cast every week. And it is wild. And
then we're also joined by the Lord of the Rings. I'm calling him the librarian, but he's my best friend from the olden days. And we used to talk Lord of the Rings back in the day. And anytime I had a dumb question, and they were usually pretty stupid, Chris would be there to answer them for me. And then he would answer them in a way where I felt like I left like a classroom that was designed for me to teach me about Lord of the Rings. And that's why he's here, because he's going to teach us today about the Tolkien lore. Chris Mills is here. And he's also like an incredible foodie. Say hi, Chris. And I mean, do you have anything you want to talk about, buddy? Like, what did you make for dinner?
How about we talk about Hobbit Day on September 22nd, which was Bilbo and Frodo's birthday. I made sauteed mushrooms and herbs and wine and mashed potatoes with cabbage, and it was delicious.
I actually brought these with me so then I could make sure to show. I got some tea from Friday Afternoon Tea, which is Lord of the Rings themed. So I have one tea to rule them all, second breakfast, and tree herder.
Oh shit!
And they're fantastic. Breakfast. So that's what I did.
I'm gonna need a review of each of those teas, and then I'm gonna need you to send me the link where I can buy them.
I got you.
Yeah, I should have those in this episode. I'm usually drinking Earl Grey and the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
color change. This is kind of cool too. This is like a black bar, but when you put something hot in it,
I love those.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
We're going to break it all down right now, but first I want to talk real quick to you guys on this episode. It's titled Doomed to Die, Episode 7, and I'm going to say it like that every time because it feels weighty and hefty. But Chris, I want to start with you and just break it down. We're going to break down right now a spoiler-free. Just give it to us spoiler-free. What did you think about Episode 7?
Spoiler-free. This episode, lots of action, lots of intense moments. I had at least a couple moments where, I was literally saying, I can't believe that just happened, just beside myself. So if that's the sort of episode that you're looking for and you haven't seen this one yet, you're going to enjoy this one.
But
I texted Drew beforehand and said, "This is going to be a Drew episode." And he wrote back and said, "Well, now what did you say on that? Now I'm excited and nervous, and I'm like both justified."
yeah, I know, yeah, because I could go either way for me. Were the oh my god that just happened? Were they more good? Oh my god that just happened, or more like I'm not so sure about that.
That's spoilers.
Yeah. So let me just say that good. In good television, bad in that it's not what you would want to happen to stories, characters / events, things.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can't wait to get into it. All right, tell us, what did you think of this episode?
I originally thought that Game of Thrones had some of the best battle sequences and emotions. This episode specifically, has put those to shame. So if you enjoy battle sequences and getting your heart casually ripped out on a Thursday, this episode is for you.
I feel you. Yeah, I'm in the same camp with you guys. I'm a little bit of both. Like, it was sort of like the episode I've always wanted for Lord of the Rings. Like, it was felt like this is like the Two Towers episode of
Yeah.
the Rings of Power, right? It kind of felt like that, even in like some of the execution of it. But it also had some pretty great just scenes of characters that you kind of wanted to have. You were waiting for the hammer to drop, literally and physically here. Yeah, I think overall, I would give this episode a pretty high rating. I think overall, there's just
10 out of 10.
Yeah, a few minor nitpicks, I think, and I still feel like even with an episode to go, the fact that they didn't show any of the stuff in the east with the wizard, the stranger,
so
and
happy.
Poppy and Roy. I was kind of happy, but I'm also kind of like, now the entire next episode is going to be that, because there's so much story there that's left hanging.
Does it make you nervous that maybe they're just not going to go? They're just going to leave? Well, they have to say something.
Something, right? Yeah.
Can't think about that.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into it now. From this point on, everybody, spoilers. We're going to break down the episode scene by scene. We're going to walk through it. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to deep dive into everything that we felt is going to be something important. So if you haven't watched the episode, go do so. Here's the breakdown. So it opens up Celebrimbor, man, enjoying a nice cup of tea, maybe one of your teas on, like what do you think he was having? Like a second breakfast tea, maybe?
Probably. He's got a clarity of mind, so, maybe he's going to snack like a hobbit.
Yeah, or one tea to rule them all, maybe.
It's actually one tea to rule them all, but he thinks it's second breakfast because of the...
Totally. He got hoodwinked.
It has cacao, aged dark tea, roasted coffee beans, pine smoked black tea, crushed red chili, and gold lust dust inside.
And a hint of Sauron blood, maybe in there.
And a hint of blood.
Yeah.
Great job to those people who thought that and put that out onto the internet saying, nah, it's got to be his blood. That's part of the illusion.
It's weird. When I went back and watched last week's episode, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because he does it way before he conjures the vision.
Well, we speculated on it. We speculated on it anyway.
Yeah. Well, there he is. He's drinking his tea and he's crafting the rings, and he's got this really cool scene where he pulls one ring together, and it like visually
that was so cool.
It was kind of cool, right? You kind of see it come together and just becomes like, I was kind of, is that how rings are made? I didn't know, but I was kind of like, is that magic or actually how rings are made? And I also wanted to point out, like, he's melting you think it's mithril or melting the iron or whatever the rings are made of in it, and it's just like in a little cup, and it melts like right away. And I'm like, that has a really low melting point for rings. But as he's working, he realizes one of the hammers is missing a jewel, right? And he's kind of gets a little like taken aback, and he's looking for the jewel on the ground, and he sees a mouse, and he sits up and he sees himself. He sees a reflection of himself, and he's all ragged, and like his face is all dirty, and his hair is all disheveled, and he's like, that's not right. And right away, Annatar walks in and is like, hey, what are you doing on the floor, buddy? That's not
Did you fall?
Did you fall and you can't get up? And the dream, the illusion comes kind of rectifies itself. Like the gaslighting continues, and Celebrimbor's like smart. He's picking it out, but he's still coming back to, okay, yeah, I gotta get back to these rings. And he claims it's going to be a few more days, which right away I started to think about a timeline here, and maybe you guys can help me out. Like, how long do you think the siege has been going on? Because he had to make 9 rings. Like, is that something he could do in a day? Is it 2 days? Has it been a week?
I think the siege has only been a couple hours.
Really?
But I think he thinks it's been a few days. So there's got to be, like, maybe some form of, like, time manipulation.
Yeah.
Because if that damage is pretty fresh.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could say that because it's revealed in the, we'll talk about it in a little bit here, that it's sort of on a loop, in like a videotape loop.
Mm-hmm.
And you might argue that that loop, as it happens, Celebrimbor continues. So you come to the end of the loop, and it's not just the illusion that resets, but everything that would have taken place maybe before or something like that.
Mm.
Also kind of resets. So he has a little infinity all to his own, just within the matter of however long the loop lasts. I could see
Right.
something like that happening.
Yeah.
I was a little confused about the timeline just because I'm thinking of sieges, like in the real world, like medieval sieges, you might
Yeah.
think of as happening like for like a long time, like
Right.
weeks or
Weeks.
I don't
Yeah.
know how long they last. So, and how much of Eregion is there to destroy, and how long before the actual destruction of the room that you're in kind of imposes itself on your false reality?
Mm-hmm.
So it probably, I don't know, and but absent some sort of like time trickery, then there's probably, it wasn't that long.
We get a glimpse of Eregion burning from an orc attack, and Annatar is out there, and he pretty much says to the leader of the troops and to Merdanya, like, I'm in control. He's lost his mind. Celebrimbor's gone, right? Then Celebrimbor, is no longer. I'll handle the siege, and we get
He's telling us to not do anything, but that's not gonna happen.
yeah, they're all frustrated with him. He's like up in his ivory tower kind of vibe, right? Not doing it. And he's mentally unfit, as Celebrimbor, Annatar says. And there's like a little side conversation with him and Britannia, and he's very thankful to her, and it almost feels actually pretty sincere. Like there's a pretty sincere moment where Annatar and Merdanya are having, like, he's like, I appreciate everything you've done, and and he's like, and he says the line, you'll be duly rewarded. I was like, oh shit, that's not the most ominous thing ever, knowing for us, knowing that who he is. I was like, oh shit.
It's like, oh boy, what's he gonna do to her?
Yeah. So my head started spinning. I was like, what's gonna happen? So they're having this conversation, and and you see Adar overlooking, and I'm not sure why he makes a decision that now's the time. There's kind of a weird shot where he's the sun looking like it's getting blocked out by like smoke and dust or something. I don't know. It started to felt like darker, like the darkness had overcome the city or something. And he's like, now's the time. And they turn their catapults, their trebuchets, toward the mountain. And Annatar picks up on it right away. And he's like, prepare for ground assault. And they're all like, why? They can't cross the river.
Wow.
And he even says, like, Celebrimbor thinks we're safe because of the river. And Chris, I don't know, or On, can you help me out here? Like, did the orcs are they afraid of the water? Or is just the river, it flows too fast for them to like make enough boats to go across in a way that wouldn't be compromising?
Rivers are a good tactical defense. Yeah, it's hard to cross a river, especially with an army. You just with one person swimming, assuming they're going to bring all this machinery and siege engines and such across.
Yeah.
Look, just because I'm named after a river doesn't mean I know anything about rivers.
Why not? Come on now.
I know, it's a problem.
And so they the trebuchets take out this mountain and block the river, dam the river, so that there's no more water flowing to the side of Eregion. And my thought here, I was like, well, hey, I don't know what they're throwing at this damn mountain, but it did pretty good work.
Big rocks.
Yeah, you'd normally take a feat of engineering to dam a river like that, but
right.
Okay, let's let them have this one. That was a good shot.
Yeah.
And I was actually concerned for the dwarves, but not under the mountains, because they'd just gotten their shafts back in order. And
that's taking a chunk out of the mountain.
Yeah.
We do get a shot here before we get to Khazad-dûm. We do get a shot of Arondir arriving on scene, and he kind of notices that Eregion is under attack, and he's like, okay, I'm here at the right place. You get a nice shot. There's some really pretty shots of the destruction of the city, by the way. Like, props to the CGI.
It's like one of those like morbidly beautiful things.
Like the fires and like the towers and the destruction. Like, you really feel that it's taken a pounding. So we get to Khazad-dûm. Prince Durin and Prince Diza are resisting King Durin's greed orders. They're holding strong. And Narvi, the miners go down with Narvi, and they're like, the prince and Diza are like, all right, we're ready for you. Like they're gonna take on like 10 miners, and I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna work out for you.
Hey, props to them for being ready to give it a go.
Give it a go, yeah. And luckily Narvi's like, nah, just joking. We're with you guys.
That was really great because I was expecting them to like fight against each other.
Yeah,
and the relief in their eyes when they're on the same side as.
I know. Yeah, it was pretty wild, and even Narvi's convinced that King Durin has lost his heart, like he's lost it. He's not the Durin that he once knew, which is sad. And it seems like, and are you guys getting a sense that everyone's fully aware that the Balrog's there? Like everybody's kind of like I feel like there's a couple references like to
somebody even mentions this beast. Yeah,
I think Disa would have told at least the more important people that wouldn't freak out about like, hey, I'm hearing these types of things in the mountains. There is something here. I don't know if she knows exactly what it is, but knows that something as big is down there.
Yeah, because it seems weird. Yeah, it seems like that's the fear, right? It's no longer that we're going to crumble things are going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. It's more like we dig too deep, something's gonna come at us. Yeah. Like something that we can't stop.
Basically.
Interesting. So Narvi tells Prince Durin about Elrond at the gates, and he's like, bring him in quietly. He's not exactly the most welcomed elf, and
he's been he was banned from like all dwarven residences.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Of course he was.
Elrond
that's the punishment for losing the hammer contest.
The hammer,
Yep.
Right? Yeah, I remember that from season 1, right? Yeah.
And I love Durin's like insult. I had to bring it up to make sure I got it right. You title-haired, flowery-tongued flagpole.
Yeah.
I lost
That's good.
it. Oh my gosh. And it made it even funnier because he's like, what title-haired, and you bring sand with you. And and it makes it even funnier because his hair is very wavy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
totally making fun of his curls.
Yeah.
He does. He's like, you got a lot of sand coming here. Again, like, I think this scene made me miss season 1.
I know,
right? Yeah. Like their banter and friendship is like we were missing this season. Yeah. I feel like we needed more of that. Yeah,
good to have it back for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. These two, I think, were the standouts from the first season, and that kind of bromance or that friendship, and I kind of hope we get more of it in season 3 when we get season 3. I hope they kind of bring that back. Elrond makes his plea for help, and he's like, "I need your axe." I got a little bit of
need
a
your axe, old friend.
Yeah, I got a fellowship vibe here, which was great, and
my flagpole. What this made me think of is that this is a characteristic of dwarves in that they are fast in friendship and just as equally as fast in enmity, where they don't forget any wrongs that you've done to them, but they also don't forget friendship that they've done either. There's a part of Unfinished Tales where it takes place after the events of Return of the King, and Gandalf is like indulging more of the histories of what's just happened, and he's talking about how he convinced Thorin to go along or to take Bilbo along on the journey of the Hobbit, the Erebor quest in the first place. And he makes a comment, and he says, because this is taking place in the Blue Mountains when it's just Thorin and Gandalf kind of arguing about it, because Thorin doesn't want to take a Hobbit. He just doesn't see why that's a good idea at all. And eventually Gandalf says, well, look, he's my friend, and if you take him, I won't forget it. And I'm telling you also that if you take this Hobbit with you, you'll succeed. If not, you'll fail. And I can't say more than that. And Gandalf comments and says, I really had no idea what I was going to say to convince him, but as it turns out, I couldn't have said anything better, because if nothing else, dwarves understand loyalty to friends,
Mm.
and that's why he initially agrees.
Mm.
And so I know that's not really quite relevant, but this is the sort of thing that's going through my head whenever I'm watching this episode in this moment and seeing Doran's loyalty to Elrond, and
Yeah.
then later in the speech when that it's kind of that those kind of feelings that he invokes in the crowd,
Yeah.
which it's not so far a stretch, I guess, for him to be confident that dwarves will understand this, because he feels the same way. This is their culture.
Yeah. And he's mentioned before, he's like, even I think to his dad, he's like, Elrond is like a brother to me, right? He's like family, right? Like he considers him, someone he would probably do anything for. I think what makes the later scenes, I think, a little bit even more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Which is great, because you get the sense that even Elrond may not show it, because of his sort of like logical, sort of elvish demeanor. He's not one to sort of be overly emotional, right? Most elves are they're more like Vulcans.
Very demure.
yeah. They're like, they don't really like show a ton of emotion, it seems like. So I think later on we get a sense of like how much even Prince Durin and his promise means to him. So
Yeah.
we leave Khazad-dûm. We'll be back in a few minutes. And we're back, and the battle's still going on. Orcs are, now that the dam has been in place, the water's receded, and the orcs are flooding into towards the wall.
The orcs are flooding in now.
Yeah. Yeah. And Merdania's like watching from afar, and they're like, they got a Ravager, and I'm in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck is a Ravager? Did you guys know what a Ravager was? What was
No idea.
No,
Nope.
and I'm in
I was
fact,
like, that sucks.
I was spending a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how this thing works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Honestly,
'Cause
didn't even think about that.
Oh, really?
No.
You were like, Ravager. Sounds bad. That's not a good.
Like, it's going to be bad, whatever it is, however this thing works. It makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, that's good about our dynamic. You were looking at their armor and their outfits and their wigs.
The wigs.
And I'm trying to think, how does this thing hammer into the wall? I didn't. Wait, is it pulling? Is it hammering or is it pulling them? Is this going to shoot a ballista or is it? No, I don't know.
Pulling. I don't know. They're hammering shit into it. Yeah, I don't. I couldn't. I didn't
I have no
understand
idea.
it either. Yeah. I didn't know what it was. They're like, she's got one. She seemed really scared about it, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. This is the point where I feel like, I'm all for shows not over explaining things, but I wish there was like some side like lackey, like, what is that thing? And she's like, Ravagers take down walls or something, or like,
Some
like
exposition, you mean?
a little bit of exposition.
Richard Taylor commentary.
Yeah,
Those things
exactly.
with the Ravager, you can see they were designed in these blueprints.
Yeah, you need to go up
That's
like
good.
they're looking in a book. And there's Ravager with a
Here,
drawing.
pause it real quick. What's
Yeah, I don't know why I found that funny. I was just like, what the fuck? She seemed real nervous about it though. Celebrimbor though, he's catching on at this point. He's up in his tower and he's sitting there and he's staring at a mouse.
Yep.
And I'm thinking,
Annatar's like,
Yeah.
I thought he's just so like absorbed into it, and he's like, watch this.
yeah,
And Annatar's
like, okay, I've pushed you too far, buddy.
Yeah,
Even
basically.
Annatar's like, oh shit.
like, oh,
Like,
great.
maybe I thought I was joking to them.
Am
that
I
he
going to
lost
have to
his-
get another ringsmith?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he
Do you remember seeing the mouse before? This is just kind of an ironic
Yes.
or an apropos sort of thing. Is I think, well, we now know that they had this establishing shot of the mouse because of what's going to happen later.
yeah, like even
Yeah,
a couple
it's a little
episodes
weird.
ago, right? Like
Yeah,
there
it was
a
it was more than one episode ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, what a weird. And in my mind, and I should have brought it up on when we were talking. I was like, why wouldn't they want to get rid of that fucking mouse? Like, is that a thing you
Yeah.
really want in your?
Did you hear Celebrimbor? He's like,
Hello, Mr. Mouse.
Mr. Mouse.
Yeah.
Like, he's not gonna take him out.
I don't know.
Like,
I
you're
just.
my friend now.
I guess maybe elves are a little bit more okay with woodland animals living in their shops. Where my
I
wife
mean,
would be like
in
losing her
principle,
mind.
mice are cute, and I would love to be able to live in harmony with them, and ideally or whatever. But like last winter, we had a mouse in the house, and it's a different game when it's tearing things up and
It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Scratching in your
Yeah.
walls and shit. Yeah,
chewing
you're like
into the wiring and
right.
It's a
Yeah.
good thing they
Pooping
don't have
everywhere.
wiring.
Pooping everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they die in your walls, and then they just smell. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
someone's dying in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a good time. I would have got rid of
No.
it with a
Yeah.
broom, nicely like swept them out. Be like,
Humanely.
go elsewhere, little cute mouse. But no, Celebrimbor is watching that mouse and notice it's there's a, like you said, Chris, there's a loop. It's repeating, and it breaks the illusion. And there's a couple things he points out. He points out like he's
Candle.
The embers in the fire.
the embers in the fire, and then
Uh-huh.
he marks the candle, and he notices that the candle never
Yeah.
burns.
Science.
Science. Yeah, I thought that was actually pretty clever.
Let's
I thought that
test
was
it.
a
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty
Yeah.
cool. It wasn't just like a glitch in the Matrix kind of cat thing, like with the mouse. Like there was other things he did, which I thought
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
a nice touch. So Celebrimbor right away is like, "Who are you? Like you've done this.
Mhm.
This is you. You're no Valar. A Valar wouldn't have done this to me." And Annatar is like, "Yep, I'm
Yeah,
not. You're not who
it's-
you think I am."
It's really hard watching Celebrimbor continuously break down.
Oh yeah.
That poor man has been through so much and is just consistently used and beaten up and torn apart and just straight up abused, and watching him continuously like fall apart, pointing out these things. Who are you? What have you done to me? What have I done? Is really horrible to watch. This poor man.
Yeah. And that all
And
comes
watching
to a
everybody around
crescendo
him.
here in a few minutes when
Yeah. And everybody
hit-
around him doesn't believe anything he says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's turned all his friends into basically Sauron's flying monkeys.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. He gets so mad he throws his hammer at him, and it hits the window behind Annatar, and the illusion breaks. He looks out the window, and his city
That
is
was so
just
cool.
destroyed. Right, and you could see the look on his face. He's like, "What have
Yeah.
what have I done?
What has
I've-
been happening?
And he turns back around and sees the destruction of his own workshop, and
Yeah.
it's terrible. He props to this actor for really going all out.
Charles Edwards.
Yeah.
Charles Edwards. Yeah, bravo.
Yeah.
And right away, Celebrimbor puts it together. He's like, "You're Sauron. You're him." And there's some great lines. Like Sauron says, "I am." When he's trying to defend himself, he's like, "I'm the one keeping the storm at bay. I'm balancing the very sun above your head." Right? He's sort of like trying to convince Celebrimbor still that he is doing this for him. Like I'm doing this to help you, to be, like to keep you together. I built this facade so that you could work in peace.
And that's when he notices the not so mithril.
Yeah.
Oh,
He goes,
right.
yeah. It turns out it's black blood, and
Yeah.
so he
And he's
holds
like,
up his
"Oh."
hand, and he shows the cut on his hand. And it's black, and it all like everything just like the dominoes just completely fell here. Celebrimbor's just like wow. Rushes out the door. He's like, "Holy shit, that's Sauron!" Just
Yeah.
he just exits and runs to tell everybody. Right? He's like, guys,
And
everybody.
there's a really cool comment I saw on Threads last night too about the blood. It's not from the books, but I think the blood is their way of explaining why Sauron will be able to bend the bearers of the Nine to his will. Which, if true, it works better on screen than just men are easily corruptible. And I thought that was a very nice way of doing that cinematically, instead of like all men are corruptible. It's just this minor influence, but like on screen, having it be like, oh, he's like actually wearing a ring made of Sauron's blood. Yeah, that's gonna cause some more intense corruption than just power. I thought that was
It works as
really
well
well
because we have established that he has his blood in the Seven as well. Although he does that more secretly.
I think I don't know about the blood in the Seven. I think it's just
don't we see him when he's dropping the mithril in, and
he just passes it from one hand to the other and places it in. So I think that's just kind of him like having an influence with just like him touching it. I think the rings of men are the only ones to actually like legit have his blood.
So that's the only time we've explicitly seen him draw.
At least explicitly seen it. Yeah.
I have a feeling there's gonna be a scene where like you know, when you watch like a mystery show where it kind of goes back and you see how he corrupted the set. Like there had to be some handoff where he did something, and like because it's not very explicit what he does to the dwarven rings to make them what they are, right? Like as flawed, make them flawed in that way. Because he just grabs the mithril from Celebrimbor and
probably
then
whispers some sort of type of spell.
Yeah, you see him close his eyes. So maybe he's conjuring something. So there's an illusion that everyone else sees something normal, but he does something. Yeah.
And moving forward with Celebrimbor, this is one of 2 times that the poor man gets thrown off his front steps. That poor guy is literally getting thrown around now instead of emotionally and mentally. Now he's physically getting thrown around.
Yeah. He does. He walks out and he gets blasted, and you know, and he, like from a incoming fireball, and then he gets up and he stumbles towards Mordania, and he's saying, listen, like it's like I've been tricked, you know, like he's Sauron, you know, like this, we gotta, he says like, he just sounds like a crazy old man here. Right?
And that's the thing, is even though we know that he's telling the truth, it's not hard at all to see how he just sounds like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And content warning as usual for, you know, Annatar, Sauron and his abusive ways, but this is also how it works in abusive relationships.
Yes.
They isolate you, so then it's all just you, but if you try to break out of it, try to tell somebody such and such happened, your abuser's already been talking to other people saying, oh, they're losing their mind, weird things are happening. This is exactly how it is. And the look on Mordania's face when she completely doesn't believe him whatsoever is shattering.
It's painful. This whole season has, you're absolutely right. There's been a very close metaphor, or not even a metaphor. It's it's a depiction of an abusive relationship.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen right away. It's always slowly, and it just it does corrupt.
You guys have probably seen online. There's this thing called the narcissist prayer, and I can't remember the words of it, but it's something like it. That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that big of a deal, and if it was, then it was actually your fault, or something like that. I was thinking of that a lot when in the scene where Sauron is basically telling him that, like, oh, this is your fault. You chose for me to torture you this way, and that's just absolutely abusive relationship shit right there.
That's a great moment, and a little bit, but I there's a crazy thing that happens in this scene on when they're on the edge of the city, and you know the orcs are coming, right? They're in full attack. They're coming at the city. You know, the bowmen are keeping them back, and they're having this conversation, and even Mordania is like, okay, I don't know what the hell you're saying, but let's get you back up to your tower. And he, and this is right before too, where even the soldiers are like, you've done nothing for us. You've been up in your tower. Yeah. He's the one, you know, saving lives. And so like, it's all like, he's sort of like, he's now getting more frustrated because now he's realizing no one believes him.
Well, he's trying to tell them, like, this is the thinnest part of the wall. Why aren't you, like, you need to be like reinforcing this. Like,
Yep.
Like
the Ravager's coming. And he sees it. He sees the Ravager
right below him. Yeah.
And Mordania grabs him to take him upstairs, and he goes, "Get off me!" And Annatar, with a flick of his wrist, makes Celebrimbor throw her off the wall.
Well, and right before that too, he tries to prove that he's Sauron with the blood, and saying, "Hey, no, he's bleeding black. Sees him, check him now." And he takes a second and then shows his hand, and it's red. Yeah. Creating another illusion, which then piles on the you're not in your right mind, you're lying. And the way that he she just that was the first what the fuck moment of the show.
Yeah.
Was her just getting thrown and then
just cleaved.
Cleaved.
Yeah.
I was
This
like,
is the moment when I was standing, just sitting there like agape, like I can't believe
did they
that just
really
happened.
just do that?
I can't believe. I really I can't believe that this just happened.
Yeah. And that's like that's the first of many that's going to happen.
This scene, as shocking as it was, felt, we spend a lot of time with Mordania, right? Mm-hmm. Like she's like, I feel like obviously not a main character, but as far as sub characters go, she's like got a lot of lines, a lot of screen time with Celebrimbor and Annatar by themselves, right? Like it felt like there was more purpose to her than just being thrown off and used as sort of like a like another nail in Celebrimbor's coffin, as it were, right? Like, did anybody else feel like this? Like I felt like this should have happened to a soldier, not her.
I don't think it would have had as big of an impact on the soldiers and the people around him if it was anybody else less than Mordania, because if it was, they would be like, oh, that sucks, Brother in Arms is gone. But since it's Mordania, who's like pretty well respected and really good friends with Celebrimbor, he just killed her, why? What? So that is what makes them want to bring you back to the tower, is because he did something so egregious.
No, just to follow up on what you're saying, which I agree with, and in a similar way, it works in the same way to us, the audience. And would we care as much about a character that they hadn't invested that screen time into building up a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me even more nervous for Poppy, like we were saying in the last episode.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Here's my biggest concern is once a character like Mordania's just good, right? She's a good person, and all the soldiers seem to respect her. The moment Celebrimbor appears to kill her, he seems irredeemable to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Like now, as an audience,
already made their minds up.
No, but like they made his minds up that he's fucking batshit crazy. That's different than murdering one of your own kind. Does that make sense? Like it's
true.
I guess I don't know. Now again, if it was a soldier, I would have been more like, and if it felt more like I'm defending myself shove, and he falls off, and like, oh my god, it was an accident, but I'm responsible for that accident. This was a clear, like, meant to look like he threw her the fuck off.
Yes. Thing. Well, I mean, look at it this way. Let's just say that that there had been no mindfuckery and nobody was turned against Celebrimbor. But nonetheless, something like this happened. Unexplained, just out of the blue, he suddenly throws somebody off of the wall.
Yeah,
people would be shocked, sure, but more of a mind to like, hey, what's really happening here? What's really going on here?
Yeah,
than they would be now in this moment when they've already been manipulated.
Yeah, kind of like the whole thing, like, yeah, that seems like a jump. Yeah, it does seem like a jump.
Yeah,
and the leader of this whole city.
Annatar is about to whisk Celebrimbor back up to his tower, but we hear the horn of cavalry coming, and it's Elrond and Gil-galad have arrived with an army of elves on horseback.
But I love this scene so much. It is like I watched one of like the background or like extras like behind the scenes for this episode, and I think for like this episode they had 1,200 extras, something like that. And so seeing all of these like elves coming in on their horses and their beautiful armor, and seeing Rain, I think what is her name? Selena Lowe, who plays the bowman.
Yeah, the best archer.
The best archer that they have.
What is the character's name? They name them.
It's Rain.
Rain, okay.
Yeah, Rain, yeah.
Or Rain. It's Rian. So Rain.
Rain.
Yeah.
You'd say,
Rain. And seeing her come, like, pull up, and they're about to clash, and the colors of this We're like, I need this. Like when they finally stop before they're about to clash into each other, the brightness versus the darkness and like the shadow. I
Mhm.
need that as a painting on my wall immediately. That
It
was
was a cool shot.
stunning.
Yeah.
If anybody from Comic Cons listen, I know how you
Like-
can make $750.
I will give it. I will.
Take my money.
Take it.
Yeah, it's a great shot, right? Like, Elrond leading the charge.
Yeah.
It comes to like a point, riding towards the shadow. Yeah, it's very cinematic. That's a very cinematic
Very.
moment. And it's like Adar. I'll give Adar a lot of props throughout this episode, but this is another good prop. He wheels out Gladriel in
Oh,
her
yeah.
little wooden cage, which I'm still surprised that it holds her. And he reveals, and then there's like an orc holding like a spear right at her neck.
Yeah.
And I guess elves have really good eyesight because they kind of make a point to
They
show
do.
that
Their elf sight
they're
is
drawing
phenomenal.
Mhm.
they're drawing blood. And Elrond, like, you could see he's weighing the decision as he's riding. Is like,
Maybe I should wait.
right up to the last minute, and he pulls up. He's like, halt, and it kind of reminded me of that scene in Braveheart when all like the Irish start to attack the Scottish, and then they all stop,
Oh.
and then they shake each other's hands instead. Like, I was waiting for them to be like, we're on the same side, actually, to Gladriel or Elrond in a tense negotiation with Adar.
Yeah.
And
Literally intense.
yeah, intense. Yeah, TENTS. And Adar's basically saying, like, give me the ring, and you can have Gladriel. I need the ring to defeat Sauron.
You're more suited to wield a scroll than a sword.
Yeah.
Mm.
But he praises him first. He says, "You're just as beautiful as your mother, right?"
Your foremother.
He says that a little after that, but yeah. And I was like, that was one of my notes was, you knew his mother? Excuse me?
His foremother, Melian.
Yeah.
This would be his great great grandmother.
Yeah. Yes. So that's big to how old he is.
He's old.
Incredibly. If he dies a really simple, just like he's dead death, I'm gonna be furious.
Yeah, me too.
Like, genuinely upset.
I think that the thing that I keep coming back to and talking about with the quote unquote orc problem, but how the show has depicted orcs and encouraged you to think a little bit differently about them, and Adar is the symbolic figure of that, and so yeah, I don't really, I'm not going to be satisfied if they just whack him,
because he's been a huge deal.
I get the sense that this season might be where they move him to the sideline. Like, he probably will not live past this season. I'm just getting that vibe.
I hope so.
Well, there's more to say about that and a little later in this episode.
And he negotiates. He's like, "Listen, if you don't give me the ring and you fight, the thing you'll come against me and my army of orcs and Gladriel's head on a pike." And he's like, "Well, so be it." And
basically, yeah.
And Gladriel even says, you should have,
win.
You should win. But he takes his moment.
Okay.
He's like, "Well, can I say goodbye to one of our most revered elves and my friend?" He's like, and Adar allows him to say goodbye.
If she's doomed to die, let me say goodbye.
Yeah. And he made a rhyme out of it, apparently. And he walks up and plants a big one on her, buddy. Oh my God, the love sparkles are here. Okay. I called that shit like 3 episodes ago. I knew it. Oh my God, you guys. Oh my God, they're in love.
You are childishly obstinate about this. No,
and it's infuriating because there is 3 things about it. 3 things. The first one is, if he hugged her, that's really suspicious. If you kiss her,
why is that suspicious?
You full arm embrace somebody?
Yeah, why not?
No, that's a huge red flag. They go and immediately pull them off, like something
sure.
like that. And so if you just go in and kiss them, more people or orcs are just going to be like,
Let them
and
have their
kind
moment. I
kind of,
can't
like,
watch.
look away, like
Elf on elf love.
elf on elf love. So that's one thing. The second, which is also the third, is both of their faces.
Yes,
Because
I agree.
Galadriel pulls away and is like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Little
And
eyebrow
Elrond-
communication here.
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Elrond's face, almost like slightly during and after, is like, ugh. Like,
This is not the look of
It is-
on either of their
no.
faces that you would have if you're like saying if you're giving like a romantic kiss goodbye to somebody that you
Totally.
love.
No,
well,
listen.
and it's so funny.
was
too,
all a
because that's
ploy.
his
It's
mother-in-law.
it's misdirection.
It's I get it.
It's a magician's trick, you know.
Yeah.
Don't look down here. Look up
Yeah.
here. Here's where the
Yeah.
action is.
Here's where the action is, and he hands
especially
her
you,
his
Adar.
brooch.
Like, check this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably
Yeah, to
thought about
Adar,
doing
because
this,
Adar
right?
probably
Yeah.
has a thing for her,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, he's
Right.
got a little.
Well, and it's weird too to kiss your mother-in-law, future mother-in-law.
Yes. Let's not. Through every episode that we've talked about this, where Drew is insistent that there's romance going on,
It's like-
let's not gloss over that the biggest fact. This is Elrond's future mother-in-law.
Yeah.
He
It's-
doesn't know that.
Oh my gosh.
In the
But
future,
I
Yeah,
will
well,
admit-
Drew, sure, he could get it on with Galadriel and then get it
Yeah.
on with their daughter too, but it's not that kind of story.
I
this
mean,
is you
it
don't have
could
to show
be.
your ID and go to the
It's
back room of the
television.
video store to get the Lord of the Rings.
it's television. Anything can happen.
I will say though that like when it happened, I immediately went like wide-eyed, like my breath was taken away, and I thought, "Fuck, Drew's gonna love
True,
this."
yeah. We both of us had the same like, oh god.
And then I
No,
watched everything after, and I went back to watch it again and be like, "Okay, I know what I'm gonna say."
yeah. No, I get that it was complete misdirection. I mean, he handed her. You could see him
Yeah,
take
but you
his
had
brooch.
to take your
the-
moment to be like,
Totally, yeah, I know, yeah. He takes the brooch off and he hands it to her, and it reveals that it's got a little lockpick in it, a little elvish trickery in there. But I don't want to dwell on it any further. But I will say, just one more
One
However-
more thing.
while we're on the subject,
I still think the show, because I don't think most people understand what you guys understand. I
They
still
want
think
you
I know.
I still think the show wants us to think, the audience to think, that there's some connection there, like
Yeah.
not just
Sure.
like, hey, we've been age-old friend, buddy friend. Like there's more there, and there's tension there. They want us to feel like there's tension there.
They want us to be invested
that's
in
fair.
that.
Yeah.
Fair, sure enough.
Okay.
But when you bring lore people on your podcast and we tell you no, it means
Putting
you
should
should
it
listen.
out there for
Listen, you
people
can say
to
no all you
know.
want, but the next time they kiss, I'm gonna go
I'll quit
get
the
ready
show.
for it.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen again.
I'll quit this particular.
I guarantee.
show, not
I
Rings of
guarantee you, they
Power.
kiss again in season 3.
Yeah, I can already go on Prime and get the merch, and it says you slipped me more than tongue, and a little picture of Elrond's brooch or something.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Totally.
why is that?
Uh,
Why is it so good?
There's a lot of people hating on this show online, and I don't
Yeah.
listen to them.
No, not
as
at
a
all.
rule, but I think we can fairly say that it's not that kind of show, and if it was, maybe I would think they were justified.
yeah.
It's not that kind of show. Drew.
It's not that kind of. I know.
But you
But I
have
wish they
to.
wouldn't. I wish they wouldn't put the little feelers out there so that my mind doesn't go there. Right? Like they're clearly
yeah.
doing something. They're Celebrimboring me, or they're Annataring me in my
they're
mind's eye.
Arondir Bronwyning you,
They-
which was
yes.
the romance that I was invested
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta talk about the conversation between it's Elrond and his like right hand that's with
Oh,
him,
yes.
and talking about, because this is the first establishment of, I've talked to Doran.
Yeah.
He said he's gonna help. All we have to do is hold them off until basically the next morning,
Right.
and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And that plants that particular seed, because
And he-
I'll bring
and
up a quote later, but
Yeah.
Elrond's sadness.
Yeah. I got a sense of Two Towers here when he's like, "Well, look to the west. and that sunrise,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall be here. You know, like
Yeah.
go now, and make sure they're coming, kind of vibe, right? Like
Yeah,
I was like,
basically.
Or-
That's what he tells them is, go wait on this particular place. When they get there,
yeah,
guide them to one of the flanks of
yeah, the
Adam's
flank,
army.
yeah, like
Yeah.
have them
Yeah.
flank the army, yeah.
In the Hobbit movie, Dine does the same thing when the sun comes up and he
True.
arrives at the Battle of Five Armies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this episode has a pretty good head fake to that.
It's a
That
tropey type
we've
of
been
thing.
trained. We've been trained to think that's
On
going
the
to happen,
horizon.
which is
Hmm.
pretty good for this episode. I'll give it that. Yeah,
Yeah.
come later. So we get to Khazad-dûm, and Prince Durin's giving actually probably one of the best written speeches. This is up there with like Andor One Way Out kind of shit. Like Prince Durin's like.
No, I'm sad. Even more.
Prince Durin's given like, listen, this is what makes us dwarves. We don't abide by Sauron and his trickery. We don't, we stand for loyalty. And he really just drives home this just incredible. Like he hits it home. Like it's like he's batting 1,000 here. He looks charismatic. Everyone's cheering, and he gets to a point everyone's doing the Khazad-dûm cheer, which I fucking love. I'm in. I'm like doing it on my couch. Like it's awesome.
The back and forth too between the speech was really cool. Back and forth between like him giving the speech and back to Celebrimbor with Annatar watching him with like this stunningly beautiful chain around Celebrimbor's hand. Where can I get a pair for no reason whatsoever?
No bedroom antics.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah.
But that was really nice watching that back and forth between this is what we cannot stand, we are dwarves, this stuff is happening, parallels so perfectly.
I don't know, I love it. I was the other day, I was my son Miles, he's learning, like we're he's 3.5, so he's got some, he could say good, he's like a parrot, like he'll parrot anything I say. So I was doing like I was saying, Miles, when I say Kaza, you say Doom. And I'd be like, Kaza, and he'd go, Doom. And I go, Kaza, and he'd go, Doom. I say Kaza, you say Doom. Kaza? Doom. Kaza? Doom. It was so cool. I was like, you're the coolest, dude.
Oh my
That's cool.
gosh. That's adorable.
Yeah.
Teach him this one now. That's because the chant's different this time.
Yes, I was actually
the war
about
chant.
to pull that up. But it's Barak.
Baruch Khazad.
Baruch Khazad.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
What does that mean?
It means axes of the dwarves.
Yeah.
This is, we get this from Lord of the Rings. When Gimli fights, he says Baruch Khazad, and he also says Khazad Aivenu, which means the dwarves are upon you.
Wow.
So they've gone from just like a team spirit Khazad-dûm to a battle cry.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm so glad you put that together. That's amazing.
That's cool.
Oh, that's good.
Baruch Khazad.
Baruch Khazad.
That's awesome. I think, like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was driving, and I was thinking about this podcast that I enjoy with you guys so much. And I was like, I think we each, like, if I were to put us each as like a character, like, I feel like I would be sorely in the dwarven. Like, I got the beard, I'm kind of hairy, like I got like a stubbornness. I feel like I could carry an axe pretty well. I feel like you're definitely like an elf, like I feel that with my bones.
Elf with a hobbit heart.
Yeah. And then Chris, like, you're just like the wizard, buddy. You're like over here, like, the spells, and you're knowledgeable, and all you need like a staff and a hat maybe, but otherwise you're there.
Yeah. I should get like a Gandalf costume.
Yeah.
I'm a hobbit on the inside for sure. Like Tony and I've had our mutual friend Tony, with longtime friend. We had this same conversation a couple of times where I would say, like, which character are you? And like, I just feel like a hobbit. He's like, no, you're Gandalf.
No, you're Gandalf.
You've got the lore. Yeah. And I'm going to live forever.
Well, it looks like Prince Durin has his army. Khazad-dûm's ready to go to battle and help Elrond, and we're all thinking as an audience, like, this is going to be badass. We're going to see some dwarves, kick some orc ass. I'm thinking that anyway.
This is when things for me start going downhill emotionally. I need listeners and viewers to know that when I say I cry, I'm not being sarcastic, like, oh, I cried. No, I mean I wept. I'm not sarcastic, and I'm not lying. This next scene was my first shedding of a few tears, because Elrond is fighting. gets knocked off his horse, and something happens to his horse.
Oh.
And he
So
becomes enraged and takes down that orc with the most revengeful, like, anger. And I
Yeah.
was like, do it, kill him, do it painfully. I was so mad.
You're crying right now. Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I told my friends I wouldn't cry.
I know, it's so good. Elrond's like, it's a weird moment, right? Because the scene starts and he's sort of like jauntily on his horse, and the orcs are kind of like, look like they're sneaking up on him.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, there's like a full battle going on. There was like some weird thing going on there in the edit room. I don't know what happened there, but Elrond is taking the troops. He's trying to get to the wall to give the city time from the orcs so that the dwarves can arrive. And
also
like,
genuinely impressed with how brutal the battle scenes starting and continuing. Like, they already were kind of brutal, but it just increases in severity to where I was like, oh. And there's some moments we'll talk about like later on that are a little more intense, but like the blood, the way that these are killed, and just how many extras that they had to really immerse you in that battle makes it one of the greatest things in television.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's the scope here is impressive.
Yes.
And as you say, Elrond, he got knocked off his horse, and he doesn't look like it's going well for him for a hot second, but he ends up taking out a few orcs, and then that one orc slits that horse's throat. Man, it is like, it's pretty gnarly. Like, I don't think I've seen anything quite that like animal cruelty like that on a television show ever.
I was not expecting it in the slightest, and I immediately went, like, that was my second wide-eyed what the fuck moment.
That was pretty shocking to see. Like, you don't really see anything quite like that. Like, you see horses go down in like westerns and shows, or like even like Yellowstone, and like, like you see horses fall and you assume they're not probably okay.
I wish I had known, and I would have skipped that section.
Yeah, but to see it,
I'm a sensitive being.
Yeah, to see its like neck get slit.
Was shocking.
Yeah. And Elrond, like, he goes into elf rage mode here, but like he goes ape shit.
Press L3 and R3 to enter Elven Rage.
At the same time, up, down, left, right. BA start, and then he not only does he stab the dude like several times, but he throws him onto a catapult and launches him into the wall. It's so good.
That was
doesn't he say like die now or something?
And that's one of the other things with like this is why this show is so expensive, because there's all of these little shots that are so full of detail that you're like, it's just a moment, even though there's several moments like this, but like with the body, landing on top of the other bodies in the mud with things happening in the background, it's like all of those people, they tried to do as practically as possible. So you can imagine that every single one of those, like either if it was a dummy or an actual person, was painted, prosthetics, everything. That shit's expensive, and it was worth it.
Quick question for you both. I thought orcs didn't like fighting or didn't like to go out in the daylight, yet there's a lot of action happening in daylight.
I think that you're right. They don't, and that's probably the explanation of the weird scene you commented on before, where the clouds are going over the sun. Is it's trying to establish that, like, even though these shots will be well lit, the orcs are going to be safe.
It's almost like making it cloudy rather than keeping in a massive amount of sun.
Yeah. I don't know if they quite it doesn't. There's actually clear scenes where it feels like pretty blue sky, bright day kind of vibe. Even at the end there too, very much so. And there's a lot of scenes at night, which is really cool too that we get. I don't know. I just threw that out there. So if it was like technically, like, because the whole thing in Lord of the Rings was the Uruk-hai were able to travel during the day. Like, that was a big
the Uruk-hai and
I
the
wonder
Uruk-hai. That's a new thing.
Like me, I will go out into the sun, and 10 minutes, I am burnt.
Okay, you're not elf. You're orc. We just
Yeah.
sorry. We
Hey,
labeled you
you
wrong.
know, orcs were originally elves, so
There you go.
Loophole.
No, I mean that's a better explanation, and it's not. I
I'm
don't think
googling it too.
I'm pretty sure anyway that I've never read anything in any of the books that where it's so explicit. Like in season one, we see a sort of like a vampire type of reaction in the
Yeah.
sunlight for these orcs.
Right.
But it's not quite like that.
Yeah.
They could like with the whips of their masters against their will go out into the sun. They don't like it, and they're weaker.
Elrond seems to be doing a pretty good job holding back orc forces. He's losing some men, but they're fighting valiantly. They're like I would expect. One elf is equal to about 10 or 20 orcs. Like
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of like it takes one elf could probably take on a good number of orcs. So but they're outnumbered still, and it doesn't. They can't hold out forever. Cut to there's actually a pretty interesting scene with Adar.
Yes.
And I forget his right hand orc guy. He has a name. What's
I
it?
call him the orc problem orc. He's the one with the family and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
That's
the one with
orc
the
problem orc.
Pronunciation isn't right, but it's Galuk.
Galuk.
GLU with the like up
Gluk.
arrow.
Well, there's an orc in The Lord of the Rings named Ugluk.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you have it.
So it might be a distant relative.
He asked Adar. Galuk asked Adar. He's like, "Do
he
you still love
asked-
me, or do you still
Says,
love
I
me?"
thought
told
you
us
said you said you
loved
love
us.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he says way too much to let you become Sauron's slaves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I thought was a great answer.
I did too.
It is,
because
but oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I basically agree with it. It's a great answer because he would rather obviously see them killed than become slaves, whereas under Adar, he genuinely actually loves them, arguably too much to allow this to happen.
That's true. That's true. I mean, and there is something to be said for that. But I think that we're seeing the seeds of Adar's sin here, and that he's letting his own pride and wrath direct his towards Sauron personally affect his decisions. Because it's not like the guy wants to quit forever. He wants to run away and possibly to live to fight another day. So
Yeah.
they who's to say that they couldn't live to fight another day without becoming Sauron's slaves right then and there in that moment.
Yeah.
Well, and I gotta give it to Robert Strange, who plays that orc. I can assume that it can be very hard to portray emotions and facial expressions in that many layers of prosthetics, but we can see in great detail, especially in the acting with your eyes, the doubt and sadness of this doesn't seem like love to me.
Right.
And starts to doubt what's going on because of what's going to happen later with send him in.
Right. I'm not a smart orc, but I know what love is.
Oh, dear God.
The crossover we never knew we needed. The Forrest Gump crossover. Well, he chooses not to press on, and he walks into his tent and realizes Galadriel has escaped, and that she used the brooch, and he's like, "Damn it, you foiled me again, Elrond. This time."
Kiss me next time, and I won't be fooled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's like next time I make out with her, and you'll see what happens.
I'll kidnap you next time.
Yeah. I should be the one giving brooch. So she's walking through orc
Make
camp.
so many jokes right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it always goes back to the kiss heard around the world. She's walking through camp with like a hood on, and she's dressed like an orc, right?
I'm gonna say something about a wig again because it's technically a wig.
Yeah, of course.
But there is
In character.
I understand its use for television, so people can understand that the person that's being hidden, she has this little strand of hair that flows forward, and I get it for audience's sake, just in case we can clearly tell this is Galadriel,
right?
And thankfully, a little bit later, it's like, hey, look at that beautiful hair.
Yeah. They
and
call it
I
out.
was at first I was pissed. I was like, you know that hair is right in front of your face.
Tuck
and
it back in
you would
there.
Tuck it back behind your hair.
I was the same way.
And the fact that she was like noticed because of that made my heart sing.
Yeah.
As it was continuously being shattered, it sung as it's falling to the ground.
Yeah.
That she was caught because of her hair was showing. And I was like,
Galadriel's famous hair strikes again.
famous hair strikes again.
Yeah. I'm thinking like, just go to the ground, put some mud on your face and on your hand. Like at least do a little effort to be like more dirty and not look like a fucking elf princess walking through camp with like a hood on.
Then they'd have to explain in later scenes why her face is clean again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or struggle with the continuity.
Yeah. I know, but I'm just like, come on, you would have made it 10 feet. Let's be honest, but she makes it pretty far enough to see like the dead. She actually carries a dead orc over to an area and she actually sees Adar.
Cool to see.
Yeah.
Their like triage area.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And she sees Adar like giving a prayer, something to go back to the darkness or something, which didn't quite seem like a prayer, more like a threat, but,
I think I have a screenshot.
Well, it's what they like, If they,
I know. I know. I know. It's like that'd be like go to the light, for us. For them, go to
there
the
it
dark.
is. In flames, they return to darkness.
Yeah.
Let's what here's about it. We've had a lot of discussion about this. But in the end, the orcs, they are bent towards wickedness and evil and destruction and hatred, and they're bred for that very thing, and they deliver on that very thing. Mm-hmm. But I like the on-screen depiction of this thing, this which is otherwise up until this point in my experience been solely an academic thing, and one that even people that read Lord of the Rings don't talk about. This is something that deep lore nerds have been aware of, and you don't have to solve it, just showing it to me, and it's there it is. It's the orc problem represented on the screen, and if it just encourages you to think about it. Like, let me give you an example here. Like, and I know I don't want to treading on dangerous ground here, but we were watching this and we were commenting. I have frustration and like, oh, well, can't they see her hair? Don't they know it's her? And Paige says, well, maybe orcs are all just really low IQ. And I said, well, that's racist, and which I don't know is just that's a joke. But to that point, most people would prefer to think of orcs in that way as well. Maybe it's a very natural thing to do, and it's exactly the sort of thing that fascist leaders do. They dehumanize a population. And sure, we're not talking about other humans. I get that. Yes, we're talking about orcs, which were bred to be evil. But like we said in previous episodes, it's not quite as simple as that. Yeah, dude wants to run away.
He's not the only one either that wants to. And I think it's nice and subtle in a way that I feel like makes sense on screen, to where it flows with the story and not against it.
Yeah. I feel like it's a little too hard hitting for me. Like, I feel like they do it too many times. Like, I feel like every time there's an orc on screen, there's a moment where they have to like, oh, by the way, these aren't just bad guy fodder.
Earlier, I didn't think that. I agree with you that it, especially in this episode, has those instances are greater. But I also think that it has something to do with the fact that it really, in the lore, should be Sauron leading an army of orcs attacking Eregion. Mm-hmm. And
that's true.
The fact that it's Adar, and that in the Lord of the Rings he has his orc armies. It has to switch at some point, and I think that all of this in the end is like the seeds that we're seeing with Adar are going to serve that end, and then it won't maybe necessarily seem so heavy-handed.
Yeah. I get that too. Yeah, they're planting enough seeds here so that we don't forget that when they are subjugated, that this is not good, right?
Because their journey is important too.
Yeah. I
mean,
because
they can hate Sauron, and it even says about Morgoth in Silmarillion that they hated him and feared him. And you can pity somebody in that state, but nonetheless, you can also recognize that you need to pretty much destroy them because they will never stop destroying you. It's just a little more complicated than that.
We pick up, like you said, her Galadriel's blonde hair gives her away, and she's about to face off against 3 orcs, and then Arondir to the rescue. Takes out 3 orcs with an arrow, and she parkours up the trench, and they meet up.
That's a really sweet moment between those two.
Yeah.
Because because it also talks about what's going to happen later, almost in a slight foreshadow. It's like, if you fight him now, you will die. And I took a minute after that because I was like, why? You could just shoot an arrow and run away. And I was like, okay, that's not how that works. He's in middle of orc territory. He cannot take everybody out. If he managed to kill Adar, those orcs are going to come for him and kill him and swarm him. So he wouldn't make it out alive throughout this whole battle. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
He's kind of death wishy anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of with Adar here. I was like, you could kill, with Arondir, I'm like, you cut the head off the snake. I bet these orcs scatter. Like, they already don't want to be here. And I'm thinking, like,
but they don't know that.
I know, but like the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many in my mind, right? Like Arondir's sacrifice would save a shit ton of people, right? Yeah. Like in my mind, right? Like I'm thinking, like if Galadriel was smart, she'd be like, take the shot, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think
like
she
in my
just
mind,
knows like there are so many other orcs that need to be taken out to secure the city. Don't die here. You can kill a lot more out there, which ends up working in a way.
In a way. Yeah, I mean, he does save the day a little later.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that. But we do cut real quick back to Khazad-dûm, and Durin is preparing his dwarven army. He's got his cool battle armor on. He's fucking ready to go.
Sick.
It's super dope. He's fucking like, this is like Durin. I'm ready to see Prince Durin beat some ass. I haven't seen it yet. I'm ready. And Narvi comes wandering out of a tunnel and is all bloodied, and he's like, Prince Durin. The king has taken out all my dudes. He's gonna dig. He's gonna go dig. And he actually, I think, says like, and unleash the beast or something, like that's his goal almost. I think. Like,
I think he says he's gonna basically he's gonna unleash the beast, as in I don't think the king knows, or at least he was told, like, at least as of right now, like moments before, if you do this, you're gonna unleash something, and the king doesn't give a shit. He's like, I'm going to continue to dig down. Whatever I unleash, I unleash.
I think that it would be consistent with the rest of the episodes, in that the corruption or the way that the ring has affected him in this way has been a little, maybe too much. Because, in an earlier episode, I talked about how the dwarves never were able to be corrupted or their wills bent to anybody else.
Yeah, it's been definitely adjusted.
It's been a little, I feel, a little stronger than it should be. So I just took it at face value that this is just another manifestation of the ring having its hold on him. Yeah, of the extreme greed. And I'll get more, get rich or die trying.
Do you think does that maybe we're reading too much in the novelization, and that the show here, that Sauron can manipulate this a little bit? Like, he's telling the king, like, distract Durin. He thinks he knows Durin could be a something that could turn the tide to the battle, and so he wants to keep them away, right? So do you think there's like, because I think the shot right after this is a shot of Annatar, right? Like, it's sort of like implying he's the one pulling that string. I might be reading into that, but I don't know. That's
in my heart, I think no. I think they are easily influenced in the way of their greed, and he's playing into that, but not in a way that he can directly influence them through the ring, like he can with like the Rings of Men, where he can almost like just take them over completely.
So yeah, I mean, we get to that moment. The prince has to make a choice, and we don't really see him make the choice, but
oh my gosh. Well, and the fact that he's so concerned, because where's Disa? That was my first heart-sinking moment for the dwarves. Was he, like, at first I was like, I don't know what decision he's going to make. Is he going to try and split the armies? He doesn't have a big army. Right. Is he going to try and split it? Like, what is he going to do? Just because I don't know how it's going to work in the bounds of the show.
I just don't know what an army would do to help him stop a king. Like, couldn't he just get, like, 10 of his best men and, like, go down there and stop him from digging?
That's what happened with Narvi. He had like 5 or 6 warriors, and he said, I think he said he'd like basically just like cut through them like it was nothing. And
See, I want to come back to a point that Drew you've made earlier through this show is are we supposed to think that it's the ring's superpower, like how he threw his son
I
off
think
the
so.
steps and like he can just overcome 10, 15 men or whatever?
Yeah.
And it does introduce a problem when you have all these invented powers, whether it's Sauron's or the rings, or because then you think, well, is that what's going on here? Or
it's also strength, which we thought earlier, because it enhances the powers that they kind of already have. This is just another version of that. It's another strength. Yeah. But he does say he cut through them like stalks of wheat.
Yeah.
I feel you, Chris. Like,
it's
a problem. It's problematic, right? Like, you just don't know what.
The One Ring for sure has those attributes that it enhances your abilities that you already have. I'm not sure about the other rings, if that's true of the other rings.
It seems like the show is sort of taking liberties and saying, like, well, if the One Ring could do that, then these rings would probably have similar properties, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Because he doesn't craft the One Ring till later, way later.
Yeah. Well, Chris,
he's on a deadline too.
Yeah.
You said, like, technically the Balrog doesn't appear to the Third Age or whatever, but right?
Yeah.
Right? So, but if they were to keep with continuity of like characters, right? Like, we know there's a Durin the Fifth, right? Like, or like we know Prince Durin has children in Khazad-dûm, right? Like,
right.
So
there's a Durin in between this Durin and the last Durin too.
So clearly, like, the Balrog might be a problem, but it's maybe a short-lived problem to be a problem later on, right? Like,
they could be doing that
in order for them to kind of keep with some continuity, right? They can't just get rid of lines of people, right, in a location, unless they move to another mountain, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, if they want to stay consistent with the lore, once it's aroused, it kills a ton of them, and some of them escape. But it does take escape. They leave. They have to abandon Khazad-dûm at that point. Mm-hmm. And do we want to see that in this series? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe. Well, I guess that's what I'm asking is, like, how close to continuity do we need to be in? Like, I don't know. Something to think about.
It needs to be a Third Age thing, typically. So even if you move it to the Second Age, then
it shifts things in a very awkward
I don't know though, because
way.
like on the other hand, any characters that don't live forever, I mean, even the dwarves live a long time, well, much longer time. We're invested in these characters, and so we can't be talking about, okay, so down the line there's another Durin, and then down the line after that Durin there's another Durin, and then that Durin is the ancestor of Thror and Thrain and Thorin from the Dwarves of the Hobbit.
And they moved to the Lonely Mountain.
But well, before that even you're right. They moved to the Lonely Mountain and established that whole thing, and then the dragon comes, and then they moved to the Blue Mountains, and all these migrations and different characters that we're talking about that happen as a result of this thing. So who's to say? I mean, it's already a little bit lore breaking that they've brought it into the Second Age. But you're right. To your point, you have to. You either have to, I guess, kill off these characters or find some way to have them keep going. So sure, you could say that Durin, maybe Prince Durin, they wake the Balrog up and several dwarves escape, and Prince Durin leaves and then sets up somewhere else, and maybe we could see the continuing friendship between Elrond and Durin in later seasons.
We're back, and Celebrimbor is chained to his desk, and he's working on the rings like a slave, and Annatar / Sauron's just staring, like looking over his shoulder, and there's a nice back and forth here where Celebrimbor is kind of wondering like why this is all happening, and why he's crafting the rings, and why he decided to torture him and do all this, and there's a great moment here where he kind of talks about how Morgoth tortured him, and I don't know if you guys want to get into this because this stuff was a little bit above my pay grade.
A little bit, yeah. I'll talk about the thing that he says, and because I think Chris knows a decent amount about Morgoth more than me. but where he starts talking about our sufferings will be over after this, ushering in a new age of peace. And he's like, our sufferings. Then he starts talking about, the issues with Morgoth. This is what he did to me. It pains me to see, you being treated like this. And he's like, what, in the way that Morgoth treated you? And like threw that shade back at him. And I was like,
Really, I find Sauron to be a little hyperbolic
Yeah.
in this scene. I think that this is best understood through the lens of an abusive relationship rather than any kind of canonical torture at the hands of Morgoth.
Okay.
Because in the Silmarillion, it's very much Sauron is the lieutenant of Morgoth and out there just doing his thing. He can have his own little side projects. Galadriel's brother builds a guard tower and he takes it over and it becomes like the haunted werewolf tower. And so he definitely has his own little things going on, but he's loving life. He's doing what he loves, man. He's never working a day in his life. I don't think that this whole torture thing is anything but just more just fuckery to make Celebrimbor feel even worse.
That's what I was just about to say. I was like, therefore that means this is all a lie. Therefore, great deceiver.
Right.
That totally checks out.
And he even says, like, there's a line which is great. Celebrimbor, like his mental faculty still clicking, is like, so he's basically says like, you've deceived even yourself, right?
Yeah,
that was really good.
If you think that's the reason why you're doing this, I was like, your reasoning is so flawed.
Yeah.
Which was a great line, I think.
Yeah.
Annatar leaves, and Celebrimbor takes this moment to he realizes, like, I can't finish. If these rings are part of his plan, I'm just speculating here. He sort of like comes to terms and says, like, I must destroy the ring. So
I'm curious about what your guys' thoughts were about him throwing the rings back into the fire to kind of like silence the whispers coming from the rings.
I thought he was trying to destroy them. Like, my first thought, he's like, I'm going to melt these rings. Like, I'll put them in the fire.
I guess that's possible. So he just kind of waited to see if it got destroyed or not. Because he kind of like...
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And then he realizes they're not melting.
Yeah.
So he pulls them out, and they're all like, they're dusty, but they're still formed, right? Like, he's like...
And
doesn't he touch them? And then it seems like he's surprised that it...
They're cold. Like, they're not hot.
Yeah.
They're cold, and the whispering has stopped, too.
Oh. Well,
so I wonder if that's him realizing they can't be destroyed, therefore I have to just hide them from him.
Right.
Yes. Definitely that sort of thing. Yeah, Plan B at this moment. Yeah. I think this is evocative of the scene in the books more so because in the Jackson movies, it's just like Gandalf grabs it and like he puts it in. He throws the envelope into the fire and then gets it out with the tongs. He's like, "Give me your hand, Frodo."
Yeah.
But in the book, he encourages Frodo because Frodo in this conversation, Frodo's realizing, oh well, we have to destroy. And he goes, well, how would you do that? Go ahead. Why don't you try right now? Go ahead and try. And then Frodo makes as if to go throw the ring in the fire, and then finds that he doesn't have it. He somehow put it back in his pocket, and Gandalf sort of laughs and says, "You can't even bring yourself to even try to throw it in here, but I'll show you. We can do it." And then he hold out your hand, and it's quite cool. And then he goes on to say that not even a dragon's fire could harm that ring. That's kind of how I took this when he throws it in there. He's actually trying to destroy it, and then so surprised that like, oh, this. Yeah.
The fact that the rings can't be destroyed, does that apply? Because you said that doesn't apply to the dwarven rings. Like, those get destroyed.
Yeah.
Does that apply to the elven rings? Like, what makes these indestructible? Is it Sauron's blood?
It doesn't really say it. We're just given it with specifically the One Ring that it is a rule with the One Ring for sure.
Yeah.
That
okay.
It was made and had in whatever way that it was made in the fires of Mount Doom. That's the only place that it could be destroyed. Right. Presumably because of Sauron's power that went into it. He made it that way as well. But when Gandalf talks to Frodo, he says, as if it's a piece of lore, this thing that I mentioned about dragons, he said the full text, I think, is it is said that the dragon's fire could melt the rings, but there's not a dragon left now in which the old fire is hot enough to melt it. So maybe it could, and then to that end, not all of the dwarf rings were recovered. The seven, Sauron gets some of them back to him, but it said that the others were consumed by dragons. Now, does that mean that they're like in a pile of fumets somewhere, or that they melted inside the dragon fire? Who's to say?
Is it Celebrimbor's skill that enables these things to become indestructible? Is it Sauron's blood?
Sauron's blood, if anything.
Yeah,
Sauron's blood,
Yeah.
mithril,
right? Like the mithril part was like, I was like, is that what makes it kind of, because mithril's technically
you could beat and reshape mithril.
Yeah,
but you would have to use like mithril tools or
exactly. Yep.
Oh.
Exactly for that.
Okay. So there's not like this doesn't break logic. It's just sort of dancing around it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's pretty kind of like a cloud of facts, cloud of verisimilitude.
Yeah, you could draw a line to it. It might be zigzaggy, but it's there. I feel you.
That's why it's good to talk about it as a mythology, because that's kind of how it's written.
Sure. Yeah. It's fantasy, guys. It's not real.
Some consider to be apocryphal.
Celebrimbor realizing that the rings. No, he's like, I can't destroy these. I have to get them out of here, right? So, he's like, I can't get my hand through this thing. This cuff that I probably designed myself because it looks like a bracelet someone would wear to the Met Gala.
Intricate.
Yeah,
honestly, though.
Yeah, it's like the nicest chain anybody could ever want to be shackled to. It looks like it's made out of like gold and platinum.
Like when you want to have somebody shackled, but also like on stage.
Look good. Yeah.
Look, the elves, they like their shiny.
So he's like, I can't get out of this thing. I'll cut my thumb off. And
I think he tries to break his thumb and is not able to.
Yeah.
And
I think he just tries to squeeze through it. Yeah, I don't know if he's
desperate.
He's trying to do a Billy the Kid sort of thing there.
Yeah.
His will is stronger there.
He cuts it damn straight off, and he summons all his might.
I'm glad.
Thank God the camera panned up there, because I was like, are they going to show that shit?
Little sound effect, but not as much as I thought, because I was sitting there like.
I kind of thought they might, the way based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what might be the most comedy bit, I think, of the whole episode. So he's just poor Celebrimbor cut his thumb off, getting glass-lit by Sauron. Like, looks just like he hasn't slept in weeks, right? Like, the poor guy stumbles out of his tower, and another fireball hits his ass, and he gets thrown off a ledge, and like he's like, I'm trying to escape, I'm gonna get out of here, and then he gets knocked out, and he's like comes to, and the soldiers are all around him, and they're like, we got to get you back to your tower. I was like,
come on, old man, let's get back. Let's.
Oh shit! And I was like, man, this guy can't catch a fucking break.
You're a danger to yourself.
Get you back to bed, Granddad.
Yeah,
basically, yeah,
totally. Yeah. And thankfully, Galadriel shows up without Arondir, I might add, which I found strange. I guess there was a glimpse of him kind of shooting arrows at a wall a minute ago.
I will point out my one irritation. It is always a hidden tunnel somewhere that no one knows about.
Yeah.
That's always the thing.
Always.
I wish there could have been a better explanation for that.
Yeah.
They're just like, I fought my way through and I made my way here. Like,
right.
It doesn't always have to be some sort of secret tunnel.
I like secret tunnels.
I do too, but it feels overused in media. It's kind of like a cop out.
I feel
you. Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a little more realistic.
They've poked plenty of holes in this wall to say that she just was able to squeeze through somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my one irritation.
She's got some parkour skills. We've seen her climb up fucking trees, and I mean, she can climb a wall.
Yeah.
Well, she shows up and tells the soldiers, like, he is the Lord of Eregion, and kind of snaps them out of their spell for a minute, right?
And somebody else corroborating his story.
Yeah.
And so that's when they're like,
well, not just anybody, but it's like Lady
Galadriel.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, she shows up and kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Like someone with some weight to throw around.
Yeah. The relief in his face when she's like, yeah, it's Sauron, and I believe you, the relief that he has knowing that somebody finally believes him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah, it's you get a sense that he's, and there's a nice speech about, he talks about the light will always win. Like he's sort of like gets real philosophical here.
This was a very Tolkien speech
Very.
with the light and the darkness. There's a lot said about that in a lot of places. I actually thought like, well, this is true unless you're talking about Ungoliant, the big spider who was described as having a positive darkness. But
That's interesting.
That aside, what he says about like if you just think about it in your everyday experience, light versus darkness. If they go head to head, which one wins? The darkness has no chance. That's a really Tolkien sentiment, and it ties in with ideas about eucatastrophe and despair and those sorts of things.
It was nice too before that, seeing a little bit more of his fear, because he thought that him seeing Galadriel was just another illusion of torment and that he didn't actually get away. He would know that Annatar would know that the one thing to get him to open up or do something would be for Galadriel. And so that was nice. Him, another layer to the deceit, that even what he thinks he's seeing may not actually be there. So he's on high alert.
Yeah, he's broken, and she thinks, she's like, I'll go in and face Sauron. You escape through the tunnels, and he's like, he convinces her somehow. It didn't quite. I was sort of like, okay, but he convinces her to take the rings instead, and he'll face Sauron. I'm like,
basically,
you have half a hand, and you look like hot garbage. You're not gonna.
Annatar's going to be looking for him to have the rings, and therefore that'll give
buy
Galadriel
him
enough
more
time to get away.
Okay. I mean, the only thing that kind of made it halfway kind of believable was like, okay, the guards are all like, you won't be alone, and I was like, oh, that's a nice moment. They kind of are going to go with him. I was like, okay, that was my only saving moment here where I'm like, I think Galadriel should go, actually. Maybe she has a fighting chance. You, not so much. The final battle, we're here. This is it, guys. Elrond's army is continuing to battle orcs. The orcs have almost breached the wall with the Ravager, which you could see like orcs hammering like nails into a wall, and then the Ravager does its thing and it pulls away.
Nails in. It's pulling nails out.
The wall's
getting weaker. I see plaster coming through. I think they need to like spackle a little or something. I can't figure it out, but I was trying.
All I could think about is like, get a dwarven hammer down here. It could go through that wall in about 10 minutes, based on what I've seen. This Ravager ain't nothing. And Elrond's running around with the best archer in the world. Apparently.
Love her so much.
Rayan.
It would be Rayan.
Rayan. I keep switching it too. Yeah.
And he calls her. He usually calls her out,
or something like that. You would say both syllables. I'm probably a little bit wrong. You'd have to ask Wizard Way, Chris.
I was gonna say I'll talk to Chris.
They would know. Yeah.
They're making a charge to the Ravager to take it out, and she seems to think like, if you get me close enough, I can shoot an arrow and take this thing out. And they're making their way up, and Elrond's doing his thing, and he looks back and he hears like, and he looks back and she's just getting littered.
Oh my gosh,
arrows.
that hurt. Like, I did not expect her to die.
Unnecessary.
Not like one arrow in the leg, like, oh man, that's gonna be hard to shoot. This is a Boromir
death.
Like 6 arrows hit this chick. And she musters her strength, stands up, gives Elrond the nod, pulls her last arrow out, ignites it, and makes a 1 in a million shot into a barrel of oil that actually is half closed. So there's only
it's the keen elven eyes.
It makes an arc, and I'm like, no fucking way.
But did it look like a bucket with the open top?
Yeah, it was like a bucket.
Yeah. And you guys play the Middle of Earth Shadow series, those games, Shadow of War and Shadow of War. And you shoot the grog and it blows up. That's exactly what I was thinking of here. I'm like, she shot. Yeah.
She shot the thing, and
I-
and the Ravager explodes.
so good.
Boom.
And this is one of the other moments that I cried, because Tolkien didn't write a whole lot of women, but when he did, he wrote them well. And so being able to see the show bring in more powerful femme figures meant a lot to me and a lot of other people out there. And being able to just see, because you see a lot of like male heroic deaths, getting back up to do the one thing to save everybody. It was nice. There has been a couple other female characters who have done that too, but seeing it more in the Middle Earth realm felt really special. And I cried because I saw those arrows just sticking in her, and I felt so emotional, because this show has been really good with not only like taking these characters we don't know terribly well and making their deaths really impactful, like with Kemen killing the other kid, and now with her, and making these smaller characters have really big impacts has been really nice, because it kind of gave a sense of Game of Thrones where it's like, doesn't matter how much character growth we've done, doesn't matter how much we know about these characters, they might die. And it gave that sense, and I started to get really, really scared for the rest of the battle if they just started killing off even minor characters like this. But having the strong femme presence felt really important, and I loved it. It was a great
I agree.
moment.
Yeah, I could have even stood to see more of her badassery prior to this too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of wish they kind of hinted more, like showed her doing more, right? Like to make that more impactful. My only issue is like the arrows kind of just seem like they come out of fucking nowhere. Like there's no establishing shot of like archers like shooting towards her.
It's kind of like one of those heat of battle things.
Yeah, it's just a giant shit show that you're down inside of.
I guess I just have a problem when you don't establish like where something's coming from, and then you get hit by something. Like I don't
That's
know.
why I liked how there were so many. There was like one in her back down here, one over here, one like through her chest, and another through like her shoulder. So it really solidified it was coming from all angles, and just chaos. They were probably aiming for somebody else, but this chick got in the way. Just chaos ensued.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
realistic too. My great granddad would tell me war stories and say it's the one that got no establishing shots, the one that gets you.
That's a good point. So we cut to Elrond charges here. We get a great scene where Adar's like, okay, things aren't going as well as I thought. Send him in. Send in the car.
Send in the car.
Oh, and the way that Grog looks at him, like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
He's gonna kill some of us.
Right. Yeah.
That was another, like, it was like a 2-strike system at this point now. 2 strikes.
2 strikes on Adar. Yeah, not doing the right thing. I don't know. He might have done the right thing, because if this I guess it's a hill troll. I've seen it written down as a hill troll versus a cave troll. I don't know the fucking difference between a hill troll and a cave troll.
I actually don't know the difference either.
Chris,
Other
I don't know
than
if
one
you
is
have any
affected
insight
by
there.
sunlight.
One lives in the cave and one lives in the hills.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. There you have it.
Nailed
Easy
it.
peasy.
I guess it's night, so it doesn't matter if it's sunlight or not.
Yeah. So Damrod, the hill troll's name, and again, I want this action figure. 12 inches at least. Someone send it to me.
Voiced by our lovely Gil-galad.
Yeah, he comes out of the trees.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right.
Just swinging his big ass hammer, and he's like stepping on elves and orcs into the mud.
The brutality of that was insane.
So awesome.
Because you always see like the foot going down, but you don't actually see the person who's getting their spine crushed.
Oh man, it's brutal. And then he gets closer, and they're shooting arrows. And Arondir's like, telling everybody like, take him out. And he grabs 2 orcs and holds them up like a shield.
Like a shield, yeah.
It's so
that
awesome.
was amazing.
So cool.
That was brilliant.
I'm like, more of this, please. Yes.
Yeah, or Rondir comes in here, and I was thinking, and Paige and I were discussing, and we're saying, like, well, this is going to be Aundawyn's moment for her favorite elf to come and have his
I was so
his
happy.
Legolas, and I'm like, well, he's going to have to.
Really did.
he's gonna have to shoot the troll in the mouth to get it or something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
And it was so cool the way he just like runs and like slightly stumbles a little bit, but then jumps on his chest.
Yeah.
Seeing the like behind the scenes moment of that where it's like everything is like there's like hardly any CGI around him as they're filming all of this, and he runs and jumps on this huge like basically like sandbag like thing to make it look like he's actually jumping on something really heavy, and it knocks it down.
Oh, cool.
That was really cool.
That's
Around
right.
here, favorite character. Like I love him so much.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's littering this troll with arrows, and yeah, he comes in and Elrond gets the shit slapped out of him.
Oh yeah.
By the cave troll, but he gets back up. Arondir though, like pins him to the ground, stabs his hand. Elrond, I think, stabs his other hand, and then Gil-galad rides in with his
and just
like,
skewers him.
the bastard.
Oh.
Yeah,
I love seeing Gil-galad just come in with like I don't remember exactly what his weapon is called. It's almost like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so this is something I've been wanting to see too, because it's a famous weapon and it's mentioned in songs and poetry.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's a fantastic
There's
weapon.
some scenes later too where he's wielding that fucker, and it's badass.
I need to actually reach out to Wizard Way Chris because there is Elvish like inlaid in his weapon, and I need to know what it says.
Yeah. Probably something cool.
Probably something cool.
In a great moment too, the cave troll kind of like is like laughing as he's dying.
Yeah.
Like he's like, it's a weird but awesome.
And he's able to like knock down a huge part of the wall too.
Yeah, he does. He almost looks like he takes out the wall, which I was a little confused because I thought we exploded the Ravager, but maybe not. Maybe that was something else.
It stopped it from continuously hitting into the wall to.
Oh, okay, because then
down.
Arondir or Elrond is like cutting a rope that is holding something, and when the troll comes in,
he gets a really good lick on the troll with the thing, and like a big fiery gut punch or something.
Yeah, it's like a huge slaps him right in the chest, and it like he kind of stumbles back. The troll does, and
there's some really cool mechanics going on with the archers throwing up like these like basically will look like sandbags that are filled with like some sort of like gunpowder type thing.
Explosion.
They shoot the flaming arrow at it, and it goes.
Yeah, it explodes all over the orcs.
Oh my gosh, that was really cool.
It kind of feels like the turn of the tide, right? It kind of feels like. But right before that, we get a great scene in the tower, right? And this is kind of like probably the second most coolest scene in the movie. It's
another one of those like jaw-dropping, eyes-wide moments.
Yeah. So Celebrimbor arrives with the soldiers up in the tower and confronts Sauron. And Sauron's like frantically looking for the rings, and he can't find them.
Place them in my hand.
Yeah, and And Celebrimbor's like, they're so far away, your hand will never touch another ring again.
It's so sad.
I just laughed. I was like, oh man, you've never been more wrong ever in your entire life, buddy. Like that statement.
That hurt.
And then the soldiers surround him, and he just mind fucks him, like
barely hand movements in his hand. Just the.
And they
my
stab each other. The soldiers kill each other.
The way I love watching, especially when villains do this, when something is coming towards them and they just slightly sidestep, take the weapon from the person and kill them in like the quickest amount of time. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love seeing the additional power in the villains, and it's nice seeing more like physical fighting from him. We don't see that very often.
Mm-hmm.
At least as Annatar, we don't.
I like this scene. I don't like the fact that we got yet another thing that Sauron can do, and I don't understand how he can do it.
I agree. I felt like
I didn't even think about that.
I mean, to your point, like the dodging, the taking of the weapon, and then if it did play out that there was a fight scene in that way, sure, I'm for that. But specifically the use the force to telekinetically point all their weapons at each other, and then like that feels that I even said it. I was like, well, this feels too far, even for Sauron. This is not. Drew's gonna hate this.
And then there's me going,
totally.
this is so cool.
Listen, it was cool. Don't get me wrong, it was very cool. I get that he's weasels his way into you and can manipulate you. I don't have any problems with that, and that he has now the ability to glamour or like pull an illusion over your eye. Like he's like, it's very wizardry like stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I can buy that he can manipulate, like move objects and like make lights flicker and doors open. But to like really like bend the will of someone to like have them kill someone, like I don't know, right? Like
I think it kind of cheapens what we see him do otherwise, is because instead of forcefully making you do it, he dominates you until the point that you do it yourself, and that's more horrifying, really.
Right? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, exactly. Like what he did to Celebrimbor feels right.
Yeah.
What he did to the soldiers feels more magical, like in a way, like less tactical, like just more like I have power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if he could, to your point about the rules, why didn't he just do that all along? Why didn't he just like show up and just like, now I
wonder
have
if it's because he likes playing with
ring.
his food before he eats it.
Yeah.
He may.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I guess logically, you could sort of say once he has you thinking or believing in him in some fashion, that does that make sense? Like he's sort of bent his will to your. Like now he can manipulate like you.
Yeah.
Physically with his mind. But it seems like a big jump, right? Like to go there.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, yeah, I had.
To disrupt your fun.
Yeah, no, I mean we're arguing about semantics. You're
I know, it's great.
Right.
I'm like, I'm just
yeah.
No, I mean to your point, like if you can resist,
yeah,
and then you're fine. But once he's broken you and you've submitted your will to him, then he might gain that power too. So he couldn't just walk up to strangers and
right.
Dude, I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly. But could he do it to Galadriel and Adar?
I mean, in this show, sure, and
sure.
we'd be discussing a new power and trying to retcon it for the show.
Totally, yeah, exactly. That's that's where I get caught up, and we kind of leave it there. We don't really know where those two end up, but it's not going to be good for Celebrimbor, I'm guessing.
How much do you want to know?
I don't want to know. Let me find out on my own in the next episode. So we cut back to the battlefield, and Elrond's confident. He's like we got this. The dwarves will be here any moment. Durin's arrival. Just look over there. The sun peeks over the mountain, and he's like, yes. And instead of a dwarven army that he claims is coming, and he tells all his friends that everybody's excited for, it's his lone little buddy soldier, little elf soldier that he sent off to find the dwarves, and he comes back and he's got an arrow in him, and he brings bad news. The dwarves have locked themselves away. They aren't coming.
As if my heart wasn't shattered enough, the look on Elrond's face as he's just sitting there, just like has this faith that we are seeing just melt and break. Yeah. This is the thing I wanted to talk about. It's Elrond in the Fellowship. When he's talking about dwarves, he says, dwarves hide in their mountains seeking riches. And that's where I tied the two together as to where I'm not sure if Elrond is going to speak to Durin again. And he has this disdain. He doesn't have like a full disdain for the dwarves, but he has kind of like a
prejudice.
A little bit, yeah, where he's like I've had this really bad experience. They're not I don't trust them to come and help us when they say they do because of this moment.
I hope not, only because I want more of that romance in the future, but I could see that lining up. But yeah.
Maybe now I'm just talking to delay the next bit of this conversation we're gonna have to have. Yeah, I'm not crying already.
Yeah, so no, so here we go. This is it. The ending. The cavalry's not coming, and Elrond knows this. All the other elves realize, and Adar realizes, like, let's go. So he gathers this final, all the other orcs camping, and they all stop like cooking, and it's like they're like in the middle of like doing laundry, and he's like, hey,
Yeah,
let's go battle, and they all turn and like grab their sword and run off,
that was cool.
and they're all
It was something
charging towards the wall. And there's like, it looks like there's like, I don't know, 15 orcs left, or not orcs, elves left. There's not a lot.
No, not many.
Not many. And Gil-galad's like, form rank, line up, and they charge. And Elrond doesn't. He's just broken. The dude is just absolutely broken, like on the ground. Cannot believe his
absolute
brother
despair.
Like left him hung out to dry. We see Arondir getting line of sight to Adar, and he's like, "That's my chance." And he takes out a few orcs before getting to Adar. He kind of gets distracted, and one orc kind of like almost gets him with an arrow, and it leaves kind of like an opening for Adar to kind of do with him. Really takes out Arondir pretty easily. It's not much of a fight. And he stabs his ass. I think he stabs it with an arrow, and then he stabs him with his sword.
And then
in the gut, it looks like. You don't really quite see where
much worse or stabby.
Yeah.
I was emotionally distraught already throughout the entire episode. I'm just crying. So like there's tears like flowing down my face as I'm just seeing this happen to Arondir.
Yeah.
And it hurt. Like I have a feeling we are not going to see what happens to him in the next episode. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Because at least in my eyes, we are not going to see what fully happens to him at the end. Because I think he is so beloved by everybody that it's another hook to keep them in. So it's like, if we think, maybe he's going to live. Oh, no, maybe he's not. It'll be a great way to open up for season 3 to know what actually happens.
Yeah. I mean, if he does die, it's a pretty, I wouldn't say cheap death, but like, I don't know. Not the way I think he would go out necessarily.
Even though that's what he tried to do earlier.
Yeah. There's just a lot of, like, my mind goes to like, listen, if this was any other elf, he'd be dead, right? Like he's like, but it's Arondir. You get that. Yeah. And I go to, well, okay, the ring's nearby, Galadriel's nearby. We can do some Healy magic here. Since we've seen that happen. I seriously
hope so. That thought crossed my mind, but that's too much hope for me.
Yeah. I don't know.
I need to set expectations.
I mean, they don't show him, we don't see him like,
we don't see him die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we don't see him die. But breath taken out of him, and he has an arrow still, and I think he stabs Adar. It's kind of like, I got you too, but Arondir is just I don't know if he even gets
I don't think he lays a hand on him. Really,
I think there's like a stabby exchange.
Okay,
that happens.
Okay,
yeah.
But Adar doesn't seem like he's
not phased.
He's not phased or threatened. He kind of felt like I got this. Like I've been around a few rodeos. Which is pretty awesome. He comes off as a true badass. I appreciate Adar. And I'll just give real quick a shout out to Adar. Like, from a tactician standpoint, this guy is pretty fucking good. Like, when you think about what he did in season 1 and what he did to like make the mountain make Mordor, like that plan went flawless, right? Like that was like, it couldn't have gone better. He won that. Like that was like a complete, like he took out everyone from Numenor, all the elves, like they went all running with their tails behind their back.
That whole thing was wild.
And here again, he kind of executes almost flawlessly. He comes in, dams the river, levels Eregion, like pretty much wipes out all the elves. Like he's basically won here, right? I mean, unless the dwarves show up last minute, which I still think they will, unless they show up last minute. Like this is pretty much a masterclass tactician. Like if this was Napoleon, like everyone would be like putting him on his shoulders and making him king, making him the king of the world. So I don't know. I'm kind of impressed here. Like
that's another reason why I think that this is one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen, because not only is it beautiful, people die. People are broken, people are shattered, but there's a lot of things in yeah, there's those minor things for like, the siege weapons were a little bizarre that you guys have pointed out, but the all around tactics and smarts that the villains have is something that is so impressive. It's kind of like yelling at somebody like at a TV show, like, do this thing. Oh my gosh. And then they do it. And it's like, oh, well, they thought of that. And that makes it another layer of just impressiveness.
Sure. Yeah.
I loved this episode and I hated it so much.
High action, high emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm literally about to go watch it again because my husband's ready to watch it.
Nice.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I'm going to try not to cry again. I had a headache this morning from crying.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
no.
It was worth it.
You were definitely in my thoughts when I was watching this episode.
I know,
Run near the end of this moment.
It hurt. It hurt a lot.
Yeah. We do get a little glimpse of Gil-galad being more of a, like he's cutting through orcs with that spear he's got. It's doing it with flourish. It's
rightly so. Yeah,
it's cool.
I would be disappointed if they didn't pull that one off because of the legendary spear of Gil-galad.
Yeah, it's cool. That was probably one of my favorite moments action wise too. Is like watching him just go really be a badass. And then we see it ends with Elrond on his knees. Or Adar comes up and he basically grabs him. Elrond does a half-assed job of trying to stab him, and he sees it coming a mile away, and he picks him up and snaps the ring, Galadriel's ring, off his neck.
Oh my gosh, when we had that slight close-up of him earlier and he had the chain around his collar, at first I was like, did he just freaking bring the ring? Or is that just a really beautiful detail along his collar?
Yeah, he was bluffing earlier. He's like, do you think I'd bring the ring? And Adar's like, yeah, you fucking fun around your neck.
Of course you did.
Dumbass.
And
Should have mailed it to the Marx brothers.
I should have mailed it to the Marx brothers. Will you take it easy?
Yeah, you brought the book. He couldn't find his way out of his own museum. Yeah, and there we have it. That's the conclusion, and it ends with a death metal song. By the way, I don't know if you called, Chris. You called.
This was cool. It's like on the same episode that your resident elf boy wizard way, Chris, was here. They and I were talking about the tradition of Tolkien metal.
Yeah,
and that was like a great surprise to see this. I'm like, see, it's a thing. They know it's a thing.
You would be so happy about that.
Totally. Yeah. Oh. My wife was like, what is happening right now? She's like, can you turn it down? Like, she did not like it.
You could be like, no, I can't. I'm not going to turn it down, honey. Apparently, it's a thing.
It's a thing. I have to listen to it.
It's part of the lore.
Yeah. Oh, man. So good. Do you know the name of the band? Is that was that written for the show?
This is a Bear McCreary original, and they brought a singer from a Swedish extreme metal band. Who I've never heard of, and I just looked this up afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are. He's, from what I could tell, not a person who typically does Tolkien metal, but nonetheless, it is a thing, and Bear McCreary seems to be aware of this.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. Definitely.
Yes.
This is what happens when you allow people who are passionate and know their shit.
Yeah.
About what you're making and allowing them to be the ones in charge changes everything. This music has been so perfect.
I think we all pretty much enjoyed this episode overall. I mean, listen, when we nitpick, it's just from love, not from hate, right? Like, we're just kind of.
I love this so much.
Yeah, it's all good. If you're watching this, anybody who creates a show or is acting in this show, we love all the hard work you're doing and everything that's coming for the show.
Enjoy the show for sure.
It's really, really good. Vast improvement, I think, even from season 1, which I thought was already really good. So props to everybody. And again, nothing harsh. We're just critiquing because we love the show so much.
We have to educate Drew somehow.
Exactly. And I still think, listen, Elrond, no. Okay, I won't break it up. That'll be it for today's show. Yes.
You dumbass, stop.
I just love how it triggers you guys so much. That'll do it for today's episode. We'll be back next week to recap the season finale of The Rings of Power, Season 2. Should be a good one. Let's hope we finally get an answer to who that damn stranger's name is. It's probably Gandalf. Thanks for listening or watching. And don't forget to leave a comment, or if you have any questions, ask these two. I probably don't know the answer, but if you leave a comment, I'm sure they'll answer and give you a good answer. Or if you just want to comment on how many times I've misspelled or mispronounced the name, you can do that too. And if you
My wife might.
if you're more inclined,
because again,
yeah, and it's because it's deserved, and I deserve that razzing. If you really want to like the show, if you leave a rating, it lets other people know how much you like the show, and other nerds like you find us, because we all want to be one happy big nerd Lord of the Rings family. And don't forget to check out CouchSoup.com. That's where we do all our fun stuff. It's where we have all our community hangs out. It's a website that puts out pop culture articles and videos every day, and podcasts like this every week. So you want to be a part of that community, because that's where we all hang out and we're all nerding out over things like this. And if you want to support us, you can support us on CouchSoup.com, become a member, and by supporting us, it helps like shows like this become a reality, and our writers write stuff that you love. So please do that. And if you're already supporting the show, if you're already supporting on CouchSoup.com and a member, thank you. We wouldn't be here without you. You are amazing. And that'll do it for this week. Till next week, thank you, thank you, Chris. You guys have been, once again, amazing. I'm obviously the weakest link, and I appreciate you guys being.
Don't talk about my friend like that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.